Hello everyone, welcome back to KXAN Live. I'm Esmeralda Zamora and today we had some chilly temperatures this morning, and to talk to me about this and more is our meteorologist Kristen Currie. How are you doing, Kristen?
I'm pretty good, Esme. How are you?
I'm doing good. I love the weather so far.
I know, it is so hard to argue with how nice it feels outside. Let me move this microphone so everybody can hear me. Hopefully that's a little better. It's finally here, that cold front, that fall-like weather that we've been hoping and dreaming for. It blew through overnight, so our temperatures are going to feel real nice today.
Yeah, they feel amazing already. So with these temperatures, I was reading up on your article that you published, and it has to do with wildfire season.
Yeah, and I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but it's important to talk about because that cold front, as much as we love the cooler air, it does bring in a threat of wildfires. And by that, we're talking about rapidly growing wildfires if one was to spark. So let's dive into it in today's Kristen's Classroom. We're going to start with our wildfire danger today because you'll notice this map looks unfortunately a little bit more colorful than what we've been showing you recently, and that's not good. We're in the height of very high wildfire risk today. That's that 3 out of 4 in the yellow color, 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, I should say, in the yellow color, and then 4 out of 5 in that orange color. And unfortunately, it's the combination of the gusty winds that we have, those winds this morning out of the northeast, anywhere from about 10 to 20 miles per hour sustained, but gusting up to about 30 miles per hour. I'm sure if you've been out this morning, you've noticed there's a lot of wind moving around, in combination with the fact that it's dry air coming through, low humidity, and we also have ongoing drought. It's been 40 days since we've seen our last raindrop here in Austin. That is a long time. That is plenty of time for those finer fuels, those finer grasses and shallow bushes to dry out. So we're worried about a wildfire sparking and growing rapidly with the weather conditions we have today. Now, tomorrow, not quite as high, only because the winds are going to settle down. We're still in drought. We'll still be dry. We're not anticipating any rain. We still have low humidity, so it's not quite as high. But then you notice we get into Friday, back to the high fire danger along in east of Austin. So this is going to be an ongoing conversation here. The fact that until we get a soaking rainfall, our wildfire danger is going to be top of mind. The foundation for wildfire is going to be drought. And unfortunately, if you've been with us in the morning, we've been talking about the fact that every Thursday we get a new drought update, and we're starting to regress when it comes to the improvement we made late July with the rainfall that we saw. And all of that is starting to disappear and get evaporated out of the soils because of the heat that we've been looking at over the past couple of weeks. I mean, October, that first half was the second hottest on record with the first 2.5 weeks of the month. In moderate drought, just not where we want to be sitting in the month of October. Most of the people don't realize that October is actually a really wet month for us. It's typically our second wettest month of the year. So the fact that we've been so dry this month, that's not normal for us. Earlier on KXAN News Today, we were talking about the fact that today marks the anniversary of the Lena River flood, the 2018 Lena River flood, where unfortunately we lost 3 Central Texans in that flooding. But those kind of situations where we're seeing significant rain in a short amount of time are more common than this dryness that we've been fighting over the past couple of months here. So we're concerned about it. It is something that we're taking seriously, as are many of the counties. You can see the majority of Central Texas actually underneath a burn ban here, the exception being Mason, Gillespie, and Blanco County. But most of our area underneath a burn ban, meaning no burning permitted, and rightfully so when we've got those winds and those dry conditions and the drought, unfortunately working against us, Esme.
And I know that a week ago we had a fire in East Austin, a wildfire. So this is proof that it is happening and it's around us here in Central Texas, right?
For sure. And it kind of, it begs the question that we wanted to answer today, and that is, when is Texas's wildfire season? Well, if we look at just climatology and the weather, you would think that end of summer, early fall, right? When you're coming off of weeks and weeks of intense heat, pulling moisture out of the vegetation and the soil. We don't typically see a whole lot of rain in the summer. And we typically do fall into a drought pattern, drought part of our climatology here in Central Texas. So yes, there is that frequency of wildfires may tick up just a little bit at the end of the summer and early fall. But if you're asking me as a meteorologist, when is Texas's wildfire season, I would tell you year long. I would say there is not a wildfire season here in Texas because we could see wildfires pop up at any time, any day, and spread rapidly depending on the weather. And I say that because our largest wildfire in Texas state history occurred this year in the Texas Panhandle in February, in the middle of winter, and people are thinking February, and believe it or not, in Austin, February is our driest month. We see less than 2 inches of moisture there. And you think even just from a weather standpoint, cold air does not hold as much moisture as warm air. So in the summer, yes, we don't see water coming out of the sky as raindrops, but we've got a lot of humidity. We got a lot of moisture that works against rapidly growing wildfires. But in the winter, we don't have that. Winter, that is typically dry air, and we typically don't see a whole lot of rain, even if we do get rain for the month of February, for example. So winter is a month that we're on the lookout for wildfires. Then you get into the spring season where you can have some pretty wicked winds, right? Where the jet stream's starting to get real tangly here. You can see these thunderstorms push out walls of wind that could spread a wildfire as well. So now we're talking winter as a wildfire season, spring as a wildfire season, and summer into fall. So you're kind of checking off all those boxes as, yeah, this is a year-round threat for us as May. And I think that's kind of the message I wanted to drive home in today's lesson is, yes, we are on the lookout for some of those wildfires, popping up a little bit more late summer into early fall just because of those finer fuels, but we can never let our guard down just because of the unique weather patterns we have here in Texas.
And as far as us preventing these wildfires, what are some things that we can do to make sure this is not happening around us?
Yeah, unfortunately, and it's a tough statistic, I should say, to swallow and accept. Humans start 90% of wildfires, whether those are intentional or not. It starts with human behavior. It starts with things like not dragging a chain behind your vehicle and not throwing any sort of cigarette butt outside, making sure we're being careful with equipment if we're mowing the lawn or doing any sort of yard work in general. We want to be careful of what those machines could do. If you accidentally hit a rock or something, that could be one spark that lands in a dry patch of grass, and all of a sudden you've got a wildfire. Like I said, we've already had a couple of those wildfires spark here in Central Texas within the last month. So we know those fuels are susceptible. We just want to make sure we're doing our part and being mindful of the things we're doing outside.
Yes, and I know that you wrote an article for us here on KXAN. Let me pull that up. And it's right here. When is Texas wildfire season? We have more details. What are some things that you didn't get to mention that you added to this article?
I would say I've got a link to the burn ban that you can find, and that's a statewide burn ban map. So maybe if you're thinking I'm heading out of town this weekend and I'm going to be doing some camping or even tailgating somewhere else, go ahead and find that burn ban map and make sure that county is not underneath the burn ban. And just, check in on the forecast as well. We'll tell you when those winds are getting too strong today. Obviously, with those gusty winds, we don't want to be doing any sort of open flame activities. But we'll be doing more of this kind of prevention and talking about mitigation too. Because like I said, this is today's wildfire risk. Tomorrow's maybe a little bit better. But then once we get into Friday and we got a lot of people coming into Austin, maybe not as familiar with our wildfire risk, we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to prevent a disaster.
Yes, and before we go, I wanted to ask you about this cold front. How long can we see these temperatures till this week?
Yeah, so let me see if I can pull up that 7-8. Everybody's talking about it, and I love to see it because we deserve this, right? It's been a long time.
We're barely getting this weather.
I know. So here's just a look at your afternoon highs today: 75. Then we get to 78. This one looks a little better. If I can show you those bars. There we go. And then the 80s will come in Friday and Saturday. So if you're thinking, hey, I want to do, F1 on Saturday or game day on Saturday, we also got the antique fair coming up. Temperatures look really nice this weekend into early next week with the 80s, but today will be the coolest afternoon. Tonight, let me show you these tonight temperatures. They look nice and chilly. Tonight, we get down to 50 in Austin.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know exactly. Even so, if Austin's getting down to 50, there's most of the area in the 40s because we're one of the warmest with the heat, the urban heat island effect. So we're waking up to some chilly weather tomorrow. So yes, of course, the downside would be the wildfire danger, but the upside to this is if you've been looking for some of that fall-like pumpkin spice weather, it has arrived.
It's arrived. Well, thank you so much, Kristen.
Of course.
Before we go, is there anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. We've got Freddie Vela taking over for midday, so you can catch the latest on your forecast coming up at KXAN News at 11 a.m.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen.
Of course.
And that's all we have today for our Kristen's Classroom segment. Don't forget, we have more streams coming up for the rest of this day and into the rest of the week. We also have a pre-show debate airing here on KXAN Live if you would like to join us tomorrow at around 2 p.m. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm Esmeralda Zamora.